The Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council faces funding shortages despite a strong 2014. How available federal funding could solve the problem. Plus, Carrie Schneider has this week's report from our friends at the Du Bois County Humane Society, and Carla Striegel-Winter talks about recycling on tonight's edition of Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin tonight with slick roads causing several accidents across the area over the last 24 hours. The most notable of these was a head-on collision in front of Sternberg Automotive on Jasper's south side that left 3 people suffering minor injuries. Just after 7:20 last night, authorities were called to the area after the head-on collision was called in. Jasper police say 45-year-old Carlos Frias of Jasper had been going northbound on US 231 in the area when he hit a patch of ice and lost control of his vehicle. Frias' vehicle then went left of center and into the path of a vehicle driven by 59-year-old Rod Zink of Ferdinand, who was going southbound. Zink could not react in time and the vehicles collided head-on. Police say Frias complained of leg pain while a passenger in his vehicle, 34-year-old Jamie Gonzalez of Jasper, complained of upper body pain. Both were taken by ambulance to Memorial Hospital for treatment. Zink was also taken to Memorial Hospital to be treated for hip and leg pain. Now, both vehicles were totaled in this crash. US 231 was closed for more than an hour while the scene was cleaned up. The Jasper Fire Department, Du Bois County Sheriff's Deputies, Indiana State Police, Du Bois County EMS, and wreckers from Eubelors and Sternbergs all assisted. The Du Bois County Substance Abuse Council got a lot done in 2014 in spite of recent issues with funding. Last night, Coordinator Janet Schnell presented a yearly update to the Du Bois County Council. Schnell says the group was able to provide adequate funding across 4 different areas. These were prevention and education, treatment and intervention, criminal justice services, and discretionary funding. Funding for the council comes from court fees that are collected through arrests for drug and alcohol-related problems. Schnell told the council there were several key projects that the Substance Abuse Council grants were able to fund this past year. These included breathalyzers for the Ferdinand Police Department and random drug testing for all 4 Du Bois County high schools. However, as mentioned, Schnell says funding remains a problem. For this year, the Substance Abuse Council will only have about $29,800 to work with across all 4 funding areas. That amounts to $7,450 for each area. It had been nearly $9,000 back in 2012. Schnell says that's a problem as the group continues to fight substance abuse in the county. She says in addition to working on the long-running issue of alcohol abuse in both teenagers and adults, there are now other drug concerns to deal with.
The other problem that we're seeing now is an increase in heroin use. That the state of Indiana has implemented a new policy when it comes to prescription drugs, painkillers in particular, and because it's harder and harder for people to get, what they're starting to use is heroin. Where before, many years ago, we never saw heroin here in this community, or very little. Now we're starting to see a huge comeback with it.
Schnell says there may be a solution on the horizon, however, in the form of federal money. The Substance Abuse Council is creating a new group known as the Du Bois County Communities That Care Coalition. That group will be seeking grant money from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. Schnell says the grant would be for $125,000 each year over a 5-year period. The first year would be used to create the coalition, and year 2 would be for putting together surveys and implementing programs. Schnell says there has been a lot of support for going after that grant money.
Would we be eligible for this grant? Yes. Not only do we believe it, but the state also is encouraging us to apply for this grant. So we need to have 12 different sectors that are representative in our community to say, we agree, we can start looking at it.
Schnell says the group will be working with Warwick County and other local agencies to apply for that funding. Administrators and faculty members are applauding the efforts of students in making Jasper Middle School the success story that it has become. Last night, middle school principal Dave Hubster, assistant principal Phil Tolbert, guidance counselor Tiffany Maxey, and Cassie Williams, a special education teacher, appeared before the Greater Jasper School Board. The group provided the board an overview of how the school has become so successful. Their presentation focused on the role technology plays in everyday teaching and the use of technology to improve both student learning and experiences. Other parts of the presentation covered different types of remediation for students and the impact of extracurricular activities. Hubster says that so much focus is put into the classroom. However, he says if faculty and staff can get kids to buy in and see there is more to school than just book work, they will feel more connected and will try harder to do well. Hubster says school staff coordinate many different programs that make school more fun for the students.
Just simple things. We have a walking Wednesday. We're on Wednesday mornings before school. We give a half hour, open up the gym, have a teacher leading a walking time, just get the blood flowing, get them energized a little bit. We have Thumbs Up Thursday, which we stole from Jasper High School with their High Five Fridays. Again, just an opportunity for students and teachers to pat each other on the back, tell them to keep up the good work, recognizing the efforts that people are putting forward.
Hubster also gave a brief rundown of JMS's I-STEP results in both language arts and math. He says that student learning across both areas is improving.
What we like to do is look at the cohorts and see how grades are progressing over the years, and what you can see in our English language arts and math is that we are getting growth from those cohorts each year. We're still not where we need to be. We'd like to be 90% across the board, all grades, all testing areas, and so we have our work cut out for us.
Hubster says different changes are implemented in technology, instruction, and curriculum in order to reach their goals. Indiana has received federal approval to expand Medicaid to cover 350,000 uninsured residents through a state-run program that supporters say increases participant responsibility. Earlier today, Governor Mike Pence announced that the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services had approved the state's request for the plan his administration refers to as HIP 2.0. The plan builds off the Healthy Indiana plan that began under former Governor Mitch Daniels. The initial program currently has some 60,000 low-income Indiana residents enrolled. Consumers enrolled in HIP 2.0 will make optional contributions and have a hybrid health savings account. Now, back in July, Pence submitted his HIP 2.0 proposal to federal officials as an alternative to a traditional expansion of Medicaid. Costs will be covered with revenue from Indiana's cigarette tax, hospital fees, and federal Medicaid funding. Now, Lieutenant Governor Sue Ellspermann came to town earlier tonight to discuss that approval. We'll have reaction from her coming up in the future. And finally tonight, more good news for Indiana's workforce as more people are looking for work now. A report from the Indiana Department of Workforce Development released today says the state added 4,000 private sector jobs in December and 51,500 for 2014. The DWD says more than 9,000 Hoosiers returned to the labor force to find work in December. The influx of job seekers did drive the state's unemployment rate up just a little bit. The December number was at 5.8%. That marks the first time in the last year that Indiana's unemployment was higher than the national average. The national average in December, 5.6%. Now, Indiana has seen more than 83,000 people return to the workforce within the last year, nearly double that of any other Midwestern state. The national workforce decreased by 273,000 workers, thus the drop in the national rate. Indiana has added 267,000 private sector jobs since July of 2009. The Department of Workforce Development is set to release county-by-county unemployment figures tomorrow. All right, coming up after the break, Carrie has this week's report from the DuBois County Humane Society, plus your local forecast, sports with Kurt Gooksell, and Inform with Carla Striegel-Winter. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.